So, I've been playing The Legend of Zelda: Echoes of Wisdom, and I gotta talk about it. It's a Zelda game, of course I do. It has been so long since we got a top-down Zelda game, or a 2D Zelda game, however you want to call it, that had this much originality into it. Like, I guess the last one before this was Triforce Heroes, which had the whole co-op thing going on. I guess A Link Between Worlds would be the previous one, right? That came out in 2013. So it's been over 10 years, unless you want to count the Link's Awakening remake, where we got a top-down Zelda game that felt like it was original, and you know what? I think it was worth it. It's a Zelda game. Of course it's good. I just want to talk about it for a little bit, because man, I really liked Echoes of Wisdom. This game is really, really good. I have to commend Nintendo too for finally giving us a Zelda game. I know it sounds stupid to say Zelda game because they're all Zelda games, but a game where you play as Zelda finally, and it's not some CDI garbage or just a character in Hyrule Warriors or wherever. Like, Zelda finally has a starring role in the game. Like, no matter what I say after this regarding the quality of this game, that's awesome, and I really hope we see more of this in the future. And it's interesting because that sort of idea of playing as Zelda does play an important role in the story. Of course, that's obvious. A lot of us know the game begins with Link trying to take down Ganon because Zelda is captured. Easy peasy, and then a whole bunch of rifts open up and all the characters get taken. Zelda comes out, cool, but the story detail that they didn't tell you in the trailers is that Zelda didn't know who Link was. There was no pre-established relationship there, and actually, a lot of the other kingdoms don't really know about Zelda either. It's an interesting dynamic that has not really been explored before in Zelda. At least I don't think so. So that was cool to see. It made the interacting with the different characters very cool. And that is why Zelda is actually hooded for a good chunk of the adventure at the very beginning, because you get framed for all the badness that's going on. You go back to the kingdom, we have the King of Hyrule, right and left, very cute names right there. They get captured, these dark forms come out, and then they blame you. They say it was all your fault. Now Zelda's the villain. Oh no! Very Link to the Past vibes with that one. I like that. It's like a bit of a throwback, but a cool twist on it, which also that extends to the world map, because while a lot of people thought that this was just going to be the same map all over again, like it would just be A Link Between Worlds all over again, it's actually not. It's an original layout for a map, but there are so many things in regard to the placement of a lot of things, like the different towns and where the desert is and where all these different pieces are, that it's like, I don't know if this has timeline implications. I don't really care about the Zelda timeline, but it almost seems like a future of the Link to the Past map, because so many things are there as references to Link to the Past, but nothing there is actually from A Link to the Past. It's all new stuff. And this gives longtime Zelda fans some really cool moments that have not been done in the franchise before. Like, in the Jabul Waters, which is my favorite area in the game, it's so calm and serene, the music is really nice. Over in that area, you handle the Zoras, and it's the first game ever where both types of Zoras are in the same game. That is awesome. The River Zora and the Sea Zora in the same game, interacting. I love that. That's so cool. I wish people made more of a deal out of that, because I don't know, I think that's awesome. Just these things that have just not been done in the series before. There you go. Here we have it. Both Zoras in one place, and there's a story about them. I love it. There's also cats all over the place. Like, there are so many cats in this game, dude. I love it. I'm a big fan. But of course, the gameplay, this is the big point of contention for some people, because this is a top-down Zelda game, but it doesn't play like a typical Zelda game. For the most part. This isn't just a game where you play as Zelda, who's ultimately a skin of Link, even though that is an option in the game. Throughout your adventure, you take hold of the Tri-Rod for your main form of basically everything, and you're accompanied by Tri, this adorable little creature that floats around you the whole time, and Tri is adorable. I really like Tri. They are very socially inept. They really don't know how to share emotions whatsoever, but there are some pretty good moments that come out of that. It basically just feels like Fi from Skyward Sword again, or Fi, however you say it. I never really fully knew. But yeah, Tri is just basically that again, but in a top-down form. Hey, cool, we gave Zelda a companion. I do get a lot of comparison vibes also with Princess Peach Showtime, because hey, we finally give a princess her own game, and there's a new companion for them too. I'm all for it. And this makes way for the Echo system, where with this wand, you are able to basically make an echo of damn near anything in the game. Basically every enemy, as well as a ton of inanimate objects, and you can summon them whenever you want. Each one takes a certain number of sort of shards of power. They are represented by the tail of Tri, so you can't just spam the game with every single thing in the world. Like, you actually have to to factor in how powerful a thing is. I like that. But yeah, rather than really directing anything in close combat like Link typically would, you have to summon any of these echoes for platforming, for combat, just general traversal and obstacle navigation, all that fun stuff. And my sort of quick take on this is, yes, I am a big fan of this idea. Because rather than just tackling everything in your way in just one specific way, you gotta figure out how to handle this one thing, this one way. For most of the combat portions and most of the puzzle solving, you're really free to tackle things however you want, because there are so many things that do have repeat uses. And while some people have taken that as like a negative, that so many things become inadequate after you get like a different one, I liked the freedom of being able to pull out whatever I want at any moment's notice. Like, it's very common that for platforming stuff that goes on in the game, because yes, you actually have a jump button, and that's awesome. There's actual platforming in this game. I love that. People are gonna pull out the bed and just stack a bunch of beds. Of course, that's a given. Of course you're gonna stack beds. Like, the bed's like the damn near best thing in the game. However, you don't have to use the beds if you don't want to. Like, you can pull out blocks of water and then swim through that if you want to. You can maybe figure out how to handle trampolines, because there are trampolines in this game. You can figure out how to do that. Or you can pull out some enemies. Like, a very common thing is you can take a crow and then carry it and then jump off with it and it'll float down like a cuckoo typically would. You can do that. Or you can use the game's brand new bond mechanic and attach yourself sort of, not really telepathically, but there's like a cable between you guys now. And then you can do reverse bond, where typically bond is you can carry them around wherever you want. This goes for almost any item in the game. Like, the game introduces it with this big rock that you can bond yourself to and drag it away, but you can also reverse it, and then you just become victim to whatever movement pattern that they have. You know what? You can tackle it however you want. This has often led to a criticism as well, with the combat not being as fluid as typical Zelda games, you know, because you don't have a typical, like, press one button to swing a sword. And do you really want to just have a bunch of enemies and just hope to God that they hit? Because a lot of these enemies, man, some of them can be strong, but they're also very dumb. Once again, I love the freedom in tackling them however you want. You can bring out the Moblins, you can bring out Lizalfos, making their top-down Zelda debut. You can bring out the sea urchins and just do a bunch of chip damage if you want. Or, later on in the game, you could do what I do and just kind of skip past a lot of them. Like, unless it's a forced area, you don't really have to handle a whole bunch of combat. So in the combat portions I was doing, outside of some of the side-scrolling portions, I will say combat was a little more annoying when you lose that extra dimension. As it stands, I love just the creativity with this game in general. It's very Scribblenauts-like, for those of you who played Scribblenauts, where the goal is right there. You know exactly what you have to do, but it all comes down to, hey, how do you want to do it? There's no real right way to do it. You know, you can watch someone else play the game and you can be like, wow, that is not how I was trying to tackle the game whatsoever. So unless you're trying to completely optimize and min-max your experience on your first time through, you can just have fun with it and maybe share your experiences with someone else. You may have a totally different experience, and I think that goes a long way, because that is very clearly Echoes of Wisdom's identity. And there are other really cool things about just the general way this game is structured as well. It is very clearly like Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom coded, right? Because you start the game, there's an opening bit, and then you go into Hyrule and the game says, go. You figure it out. You have the choice between two different dungeons right from the offset, then some middle portion happens in very typical classic Zelda fashion, and then hey, you have the choice between a few more areas, and there you go. It is structured very, very similarly, down to just how the quest system is handled in the quest screen, very much like Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, and for a top-down Zelda game, that was kind of refreshing. And yeah, I mentioned the Lizalfos making their 2D debut. There's actually a lot of things that make their top-down Zelda game debut here, like you get Taluses in this game. I think they're called Tweeluses because they're small ones. The Wolfos show up. I'm not going to spoil everything, of course, but there's a lot of cool things that it took me a while to be like, where, has this thing been in a top-down Zelda game before? And then I'll check out and be like, oh no, it's actually not. So that was really cool. There's also a completely different villain this time around. I won't really spoil that, but you do see Ganon at the start, but it's revealed kind of early on that maybe not be the Ganon that you think it is. You never know. I do think that's a little bit of like Link's Awakening inspired, because that's how Link's Awakening was handled as well. I think it was done pretty cool here. It's probably not the most memorable final antagonist in the world, but I do always appreciate when a Zelda game tries to go for a different bad guy. So here's hoping that, you know, they continue this in the future. I will say also that the story overall, it's kind of uninspired. Like what you get from the whole basic idea of like, okay, the fake king has convinced everybody that Zelda is the villain, and then you clear your name, and then you just got to clear out all these different rifts. Like, the overarching story is really not that interesting. However, one thing I love about this game, and it is very Tears of the Kingdom inspired as well, is each of the game's dungeons. It's not really necessarily just the dungeon itself that is worth pointing out, because there's a story that goes along with that, where you start off in a village, you have to handle some village dispute, and then eventually it does lead you into a still world, which is a new thing for this game, and then the dungeon. Sometimes there are like these sub dungeons that lead into it, and I think all that stuff is really cool. So some of the micro stories that are handled in this game with the different villages, love them. Those are fantastic, great characters. There's just such a good roster in this game. And then yeah, there's the still worlds, where you get to go into this dark, creepy-ish area where everything is frozen in time except for the bad guys, and sometimes you're like traversing through water that's 90 degrees. I love that, but this is the primary spot where there's all this platforming, and oh my god, as a platformer fan, having a Zelda game with this much platforming, oh, I love it. I love it so much. There are so many optional ones too, and this is where you can get a whole bunch of extra points to level up Tri even more, and I will admit, I just wanted more of these. I don't think there were enough of these areas in the game. I really, really wanted more, because the combination of just platforming with the cool aesthetics, I really, really wish there were more of the still worlds specifically, even if it was just for more Tri points. I really wanted more of those. I also want to talk about the mini games because, oh, I love these. I thought these mini games were really damn solid. You got these battle dojo areas that are timed. You got acorn gathering, which is really fun. There's just like a bunch of acorns scattered about. Figure out the best route to get them and in the fastest time possible. That was really fun. There's Mango Rush, which is kind of similar. A bunch of mango plants will pop up and you only have a limited time to get them. Figure out the right way to get those before they go away. And then flag races with a horse. Yes, because we have a horse in this game. That's awesome. Great stuff. I really like these mini games. I think they're a ton of fun. You get some pretty good rewards for them. One of the big issues though, there's no retry option, which is very upsetting because some of these are like timed based. And when you know that you screwed up, what you have to do is you gotta back out, loading screen, talk to the person again to activate the quest, loading screen, get back in. Very unintuitive, didn't like that, but I like the content. It's just, some parts of this game, as you can tell, are a little clunky. Don't really ruin the whole experience, but it's a little clunky. Could have been better. The game introduces a new smoothie system as well. Also very modern Zelda inspired. You can purchase potions that do the typical healing yourself or maybe healing your magic meter, which is the meter that lets you turn into Link for a little bit for combat that way. But that's really not efficient whatsoever. What you're gonna wanna do is take all the materials that you've been collecting throughout the game and you get a bunch of them. You bring them to a business scrub. You make a whole bunch of new smoothies that handle a bunch of different things. And you're gonna wanna make those. But I just, something about that mechanic didn't really stick with me. Like, I just wanted to find out the one that was gonna heal a whole lot of hearts or heal a whole lot of magic, and that's all. I just wanted to grind those out. It does try to do the modern Zelda thing as well of like, hey, this is good for healing you in fire or whatever, and it's neat that that's an option. That is a very modern thing to do, but I really felt like it didn't have a purpose here. You really don't need it. Like, there's maybe one or two parts of the game where like weather or something will take effect. Like there's one potion that helps your climbing speed. It's such a, maybe it saves seconds. Maybe it's good for speed runs. I don't know. On a casual playthrough, I really didn't feel like that mechanic was all that interesting. But also I didn't feel like the potions were as effective as I wanted them to be. So it's like, I just kept making the potions that were effective. The 2 or 3 that were effective, even though there's like 60 different options. I feel like that could have been a little bit better. Or, you know, you could just place a bed down and heal yourself slowly that way. That's cute, I like that. You've definitely heard arguments about the select screen for the echoes being very cumbersome, and that is true. There's no way to really sort them to your heart's content. You either do recents, you do by cost, you do by the last time or the last one that you learned, and by the time you have over 100, very cumbersome. The best thing to do at that point is to go into the pause screen and select things that way, but that's also not really that intuitive. This is the same issue that Tears of the Kingdom had, and it's wild to me that they didn't just, I don't know, create a few more bars on the screen, you know, or go back to like the Mario Maker 2 thing where you had these wheels that you can activate instead of just this scrolling. I don't know. That obviously could have been handled better too. But I also have to point out that there's an entirely different screen here with a whole new set of things called Automatons. And nobody really talks about this in this game. And after beating the game, I understand why. There's no point for them. Like, it's a neat idea, Basically, you create artificial echoes by just these mechanical creations, and rather than just being based off of the tri-power that you have to wind them up, and then they do superpowered attacks. Ooh. But you already have so many options for the echoes that automatons just feel pointless. I never use them. I never once used them, and I guess that comes down to the freedom. Maybe someone else will find a use for them, but because it introduces the whole new mechanic of winding them up, and then if they get damaged, you gotta bring them back and repair them, I just figured it's not worth it. I did all the quests, but I don't really care. And yes, there's the performance issues as well. That's something that a lot of people complain about. It was a thing in Link's Awakening, and sadly, it is a thing here. And it is unfortunate. Does not ruin my experience with the game whatsoever, but it's there. The frame rate will stutter quite often. If you care about that stuff, I'm sorry that there's no two ways around it. It's kind of rough, but I don't really care. Any other criticisms I have for the game are pretty minor in the grand scheme of things, like the whole mode where you can turn into Link and you have a sword slash now. You also have bombs and a bow and arrow. It is a bit overpowered. It's a shame that they didn't give you better combat options as Zelda, that you don't need to rely on a Link playstyle to get by, but once again, it's an option like everything else in this game, so it's fine that it's there, because I know a lot of people would probably not like the game if you didn't have that option. There's also a costume mechanic, which is cute. I like costume mechanics in terms of the aesthetics. I do wish they did more, though. There's only a couple of them, and some of them change mechanics a little bit, but man, this was the time to do some cool fan service. You could have given us Twilight Princess Zelda and Skyward Sword Zelda, Tears of the Kingdom Zonai outfit Zelda. Hey, come on now, that would have been cool. But yeah, obviously that's really minor. At the end of the day, I really loved this game. I think The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom is a fantastic game. I don't know where I'd rank it, like in the entire Zelda pantheon. I don't know if I like it more than Link's Awakening Remake, but that's because that game was so special to me. I love that game so much, but it's still a damn fun game. Word has it that this initially started as the fabled Zelda Dungeon Maker, and after the mediocre Dungeon Maker in the Link's Awakening Remake, I'm okay with them not going all the way with it. It clearly set the tone for the whole point of this game, where you can tackle things wherever you want and place things wherever you want. It did good here. I didn't need it for a full Zelda game. I don't really want a full Zelda Maker, so if this is the best we get, cool. So let me know what you think about this Zelda game down in the comments below. It is so nice to have a more traditional-ish Zelda game after the modern Zelda games completely changed the formula. Very excited for the future because the developers have also said they want to continue this top-down Zelda train. Awesome. I am all here for it. Yeah, the only other thing I have to say is, they didn't make a Zelda amiibo for this. We got the cool Link amiibo, and that's compatible with this game cool, but they didn't make a new Zelda amiibo for this. Man, I would have spent more money on plastic. You kidding me? That would have been great.